What up? It's Brian the Illustrator. I'm back to break down another one of my vintage graphics for you guys. This one is another bootleg, a non-licensed professional sports graphic for the Detroit Tigers. I don't know specifically if this inspiration comes from a guy named Art Evans or not. If you're unfamiliar, Art Evans used to be one of the illustrators at Disney. He did a whole shitload of vintage logos for college teams way back in the 50s. It's why Oregon's old logo is just Donald Duck. It's why Alabama has Dumbo. He did a whole bunch of these things. And so you look over the history of a bunch of schools, Missouri, Auburn, LSU all had the same tiger for a while. He just kind of crank these things out. And so I'm pretty sure this decal is one of his. I've seen this same logo used for Missouri. I've seen it used for Kentucky. I've seen it used for LSU. There's versions of this thing all over the damn place, and that's kind of how he was. And so in this one, I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to take a decal that's about, I'm going to say 70, 75 years old, and repurpose it to make a brand new graphic. I want to give a quick shout out to my old boss, Christine Innan. When I was at Tailgate, she put together an incredible library of vintage inspiration for us. We had t-shirts, we had decals, we had yearbooks, we had game programs. This thing was deep, deep, deep with all kinds of authentic stuff from back in the day that she tracked down. When Tailgate shut down, I was pretty smart. I saved all that on my system. All right, so in my system on my end, I've got inspiration from all kinds of different colleges. I'll do another video later on where I highlight a book called What's in a Nickname that came out in, I think, like the mid 80s. That had every logo from every college in the U.S. and Canada. A lot of neat, one-offs that I've never seen before that I also have in my system from there too. So basically in this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I repurpose an old decal. This thing is not in the best shape. It's okay. As you might imagine, the print technology back then wasn't as good as it is now. The edges are a little bit muddy. I have to do a little bit of cleaning up on it, but I think it turned out pretty good. And so hopefully you guys like it. If you are interested in me making any graphics for you, you can contact me at brianthomascrooksllc@gmail.com. This graphic is for our Detroit collection. It's going to go wholesale. Not sure if we're going to put this one on the website or not, but if you are interested in looking at the rest of our graphics, you can go to nifty50apparel.com. That's nifty50apparel.com. And then if you own a shop in Detroit, if you are interested in us giving you any of these graphics for wholesale, this one in particular will wholesale to you. You can get in touch with me at nifty50apparel@gmail.com. I also have an Instagram. I forgot to mention that last time around. It's Instagram. My handle is Brian_the_illustrator. Got hundreds of my graphics there too. So if you want to look at the whole kind of collection of all the things that I've done, it's not all of them. It's like my best hits. There's, I don't know, months of them that I just haven't uploaded yet that I need to get on because I've been slacking. But if you want to go ahead and look at more of my work, you can go to my Instagram and see all of it there. And go ahead and stay tuned. See how this one turned out. So here's the original. One thing about me is the uglier and kind of weirder a mascot is, the more I like it. This is by no means the ugliest tiger, but I like how his head is way too big for his damn body. Again, you see this for lots of different schools, lots of different applications. The first one that I found in my system was from Missouri, and so we're going to go ahead and base our illustration and our graphic off of this guy here. Let's go ahead and get our trace started. We're going to speed things up a little bit and get this going. So again, I do all of my outline work in this really, really bright, kind of crazy looking magenta. It really helps things stand out. I'm probably a broken record at this point, but the only reason I do it is so that everything looks really, really bright and easy for me to tell what needs to be traced still and what I've done. Sometimes with a lot of these, you don't want to do it exactly right. The Missouri in the middle, I wasn't sure if I was going to add Detroit on the body or not, so I went ahead and filled that part in case it wasn't going to work out the exact way that it was in the original. So as I kind of got to look at the whole thing, inspiration struck a little bit, and I was like, oh, you know what? His mouth is a pretty good shape for a baseball to fit in. To kind of modify this a little bit, let's see if I can make that work. Popped on over to my sports archive and found a baseball that I like a lot. And I want to try something a little bit different here. Inspiration strikes sometimes in the middle of a graphic, and I want to try something out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, you know, it's always kind of good to give it a shot and see if I can make something special happen. So in the process of making the fill, I screwed up a little bit here. This happens from time to time. I get a little bit distracted, or I kind of let my mind wander a little bit, and so this area kind of got reversed. It's always good to catch it. It's not the end of the world. You just go back and bring out the eraser and kind of trim up the areas that aren't supposed to be there and clean things up. I noticed it happened a few different spaces on this one. Like I've said before, I always try to start my my trace on the inside of the shape so that I don't have any kind of weird pokey parts. I have to line up the lines. I got distracted apparently or something. ADHD is a hell of a drug. I wound up going the wrong direction on some of these when I did my trace, and so I had some cleaning up to do. But you know, as long as you catch it, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to ruin the graphic by any means. Just something that I have to go back and clean up once I notice it. Happens in a few different places. I caught the big one in the stripes, and there's another one down there that you're going to see me clean up here in a sec. Right about here. Oh no, not yet. Well, anyway, I do clean that other one up and go on with the rest of the graphic here. I see there's two right there. And so just, you know, go ahead and get the eraser, clean those up, and we will get back to the rest of the graphic here. One of the areas that does kind of lose some clarity with these old decals is the eyes. Those rubber hose eyes with little wedges cut out, they sometimes just get really blurry and kind of muddy looking, and so this is an area that I had to add some clarity and kind of you know, clean things up a little bit so it's going to look a little bit better. The same thing happens with the teeth. You know, just over time the ink kind of doesn't transfer that well. Things get a little bit messy looking, and so you know, I had to clean things up a little bit with the other teeth. I just wanted to add a little bit more to this graphic. You know, the original is nice, but it's always kind of, there's always room to improve. And so I wanted to add a little bit more detail on the teeth, especially because it's kind of the focal point with the ball being right there. I had a hell of a time with these teeth. You know, he needs an orthodontist basically. They're kind of bunched up, they're too close together. I messed around with it and couldn't quite figure out how to fit 4 in there in good spacing, and so what I did instead was just kind of make a solid shape instead for the lower teeth. Space things out a little bit. I'm going to rotate that fang so it doesn't look like it's kind of jutting out to the side. But sometimes, you know, you have an idea, and especially when you have line weight that's kind of consistent throughout the graphic, it doesn't really work the way you had in mind, and so you go back and you fix things, you know. Doesn't always work out the way you had in mind the first try, so you come up with some better ideas and some better ways to make things work. So I could leave the ball the way that it is. I think it's fine. Again, if I'm trying to have everything look consistent, I don't want it to look like it came from, you know, my archive, which it did. I want it to look like it's organic to the graphic itself. And so I am going to go ahead and retrace the ball, add in that negative space for where the teeth are kind of biting into it. It's little things like that the client wouldn't necessarily notice, that my customers wouldn't necessarily notice either, but that would drive me insane if it wasn't quite right. And so it doesn't take that long to add a little bit more quality to the overall graphic, spend a couple of minutes and make it look, authentic and right throughout. So really he could be done here, but I do want to add the white. Orange tiger is fine. I don't think anybody would look at that and go, oh, he looks crazy. I don't think Tigger has any white on him unless I'm wrong. But if I'm gonna do something, I always want to do it right. And so let me go ahead and add in the white detailing on him as well. And that way, the graphic is gonna just look fuller. It's gonna come to life a whole lot more than if it was a solid orange tiger. As you notice, my white isn't perfectly following the way that the original looks. I think they kind of were a little bit sloppy with it, a little bit kind of rushed maybe, or they just didn't really think that the white was all that important. And so a lot of it is kind of overdone. It's a little bit choppy. And so I wanted to go ahead and make it match the rest of the line value that I had throughout and kind of get more consistency in there. Along those same lines, I wanted to add a little bit more white, a little bit more detail in here, kind of flesh him out a little bit more, give him a little bit more character with the white. I think that, the more I can add in little areas that maybe they couldn't do as well back then, or just didn't really matter to them as much, I wanted to kind of fill him in a little bit more and give him a little bit more love with the white detailing. Okay, now it's time to swing for the fences a little bit here. I wasn't sure initially if I was going to try to add the text on the body, which is why I went ahead and filled in those stripes, but I kind of felt like I want to try it out and see if I can get it to go. If I can, great. If not, I already have it prepped for the text not to be in there. The one that I'm going to use here is Market Fresh Bold. It is not a very display heavy type. It's not Helvetica where it kind of vanishes into the graphic, but it's not meant to stand out. It doesn't have anything special about it. It's just kind of clear, it's bold, it feels of the time. I use Market Fresh all the time for secondary type. If I don't have if I have a heavy script in there, I want to add, a second line of type or something like that. This is one that I often go to. There's kind of a handful that I rotate through, but Market Fresh, I think, is a really good fit. It almost feels like the same line quality and thickness as the rest of the graphic, and so I kind of felt like it was a natural fit. Went ahead and put it on a path there so it matches the Missouri path underneath. And we're going to go ahead and pop that in and see how it looks once I have that in place of the Missouri type. I also feel like this graphic is a perfect example of why I trace my type. If I would have left the type on there perfectly clean, it might not stand out as looking different from the rest of the graphic, but it also might. this whole graphic is very sort of, hand done. Everything about it looks wobbly. It looks like it was done by hand because it was. And so to have perfectly clean type on top of what is, very clearly a hand done tiger illustration, to me, it would drive me crazy. It wouldn't look consistent. It wouldn't look authentic. Anytime I'm making vintage artwork, consistency, authenticity is, my stock and trade. It's what I really want to hammer home. And so doing this by hand doesn't take that much longer, but it makes the whole graphic look a whole lot more consistent throughout. If you think back to the beginning when this still had Missouri on the original decal, it did have what was essentially an orange stroke behind it so that the stripes didn't run into the letter forms and make it basically illegible. We're going to do the same thing here. This is going to just drop to orange, and so we don't have to worry about being completely correct on the spacing and filling in all the gaps and all that. We're just giving the text a little bit of space to breathe so that the stripes aren't going to run into it. One thing I do hate is really sharp points where my colors come together, where my vectors are in, especially if it's type, but really anywhere in the illustration. And so once this is done, I'm going to have to go through and make sure that all the areas where the stroke around the letters runs into those stripes, as you see there, I'm going to round that off. I don't want it to look like it got cut. I want it to look like it was all drawn originally that way. And so the way that I do that is to go anywhere that they're going to touch and just make sure I round that off instead of having it be a sharp edge. This is what I was talking about with those sharp points. It's really hard to tell until everything is at 100% opacity. You can kind of, lose little areas in there. I hate how that looks. I want to make sure it all looks rounded. It all looks authentic. That little gap there it's technically correct. There's a stripe there. I don't like how it looks. It looks kind of out of place, and so I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in entirely. But little odds and ends like that takes a couple of seconds to fix. It makes the whole thing just look a whole lot better when those parts are taken care of. Technically, this could be done right now. There'd be nothing wrong with just putting this on a shirt by itself. After all, Missouri did that for their decal. It was totally fine. They had tigers underneath it, but they didn't really need to. This is obviously a fucking tiger. I could be done right now. I'm not going to leave well enough alone. I want to add the big D that the Tigers have on their jersey. I'm not going to use their D. I don't want to get sued, right? So I'm going to try to find one that's similar to it. I only have a few kind of old English sort of typefaces in my system. I have a whole lot more scripts and athletics and all that. I like this one the most from Dampfplatz. Technically, this is a black letter typeface. It's not Old English. It's German instead of English, which is what the black letter stuff was. I just like this one a little bit better. I think that the one that I had that was Old English was a little bit too round and soft looking, and I think this looks a little bit more aggressive, a little bit sharper for this application. here I play around with the spacing a whole lot and kind of the layout. I didn't really have a specific place in mind for it, especially because I didn't have the tiger drawn yet, but I kind of wanted to offset it a little bit. Center didn't work at all, and so I had to move it around a little bit, but I think this is kind of a nice way to set it up. What I'm going to do now is similar to what I did previously on the last graphic. I'm going to add a stroke behind it. Anytime you have masks, Pathfinder kind of trips out when you merge stuff together and when you trim stuff up, and so I had to go through a couple of different ways to fix that part. Basically, there's an invisible layer in there. It's got no fill, it's got no stroke, but if you merge it all together, it gets filled in. So I have to freeze that layer on top, lock it up, delete anything that is those gaps, and then I can go ahead and build my stroke around that, because this one is not going to be a full solid stamp behind like the one that I did for Love That Dirty Water was. This is going to be just a traditional stroke. As I mentioned in the last video, I do always offset my stroke a tiny bit. I don't want it to look like it's crazy, but I also don't want it to look like it is dead on centered. It adds a little bit of character if you just offset it by a tiny bit. I mentioned before that anytime you use the stroke, it's gonna bubble everything up and make it really round. It's just what stroke does, it's just how the program functions. And so I do need to go back and add in those little sharper areas, especially where the claws are, so it doesn't look like he's floating on a cloud, but just we want to keep that sharpness and keep that clarity to how he's built. Here you see I could have that little space there remain. I don't like that. It's what you would call like a tension point in the graphic. I don't need it there. It's going to look a lot better if you have that part connected and filled in. There's not really a reason. Your eye doesn't like when you've got things that are that close and don't touch sometimes. It kind of, it gives you anxiety essentially. And so if it's that small of a gap, I'll go ahead and fill it in just for the sake of making the whole thing look more cohesive. So at this point, this graphic is basically finished. All I have to do now is make it the right size, 11 inches across, put it behind the weathering layer. This is how it would look on gray. I'm going to put it on navy blue, but I also wanted to have another couple of options for a neutral ground, for an orange ground. So I'm going to make multiple versions of it. As you see, when I look at it, there's a couple areas that don't look quite right. I want to keep that gap in there. I thought about it. It needs to stay. But when I go ahead and put it on orange, I notice there's a little bit of white that is just part of how I built the graphic that's showing kind of behind the tail. I don't like that. I already got rid of that little gap above the tail because it didn't need to be there, basically. It wasn't part of, it didn't make sense. It didn't add anything to it. It just felt, a little bit too tight. So I've colored it up for a navy background. I've colored it up for orange. On neutral, I'm going to go ahead and have that D stay in navy blue as well. Didn't know if I wanted to have the stroke around it or not. I like it better. Even on gray, we don't need to have that. I think it's kind of a nice touch, and that graphic is all done. So there we go. Another graphic in the books, another bootleg, non-licensed professional sports graphic for the Detroit Tigers. If you guys like this one, you can go ahead and again look for it on our website, nifty50apparel.com. If you want me to make something for you, you can get in touch with me at brianthomascrooksllc@gmail. And then also, if you are a Detroit shop and you want to have this as a wholesale item to have in your store, you can get in touch with me at nifty50apparel@gmail.com. That is nifty50apparel@gmail.com. The next one I'm going to be doing for you guys is taking a photograph and turning that into a graphic. I don't know which one I'm going to do. I might do a nature graphic like this one up here, that one up there, the big Wyoming over my shoulder, or I might do a photo of a person and show how I would turn that into a graphic. I'm not entirely sure which direction I'm going to go just yet, but stay tuned. You're going to see it. If you like what I do, if you're having fun with these videos, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to upload as often as I can. I make graphics all day long, and so I'm going to try to get 1 or 2 up at least a week. Right now I'm kind of churning these things out, and so if you guys like it and you keep on coming back, I'll keep on posting more, and I will see you guys next time.